Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Dais, a podcast about the stories taking place in and around El Paso County, Colorado. I'm your host, Scott Anderson, and today I am joined once again by the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, Steve Schleiker. How are you doing today, Steve?
Doing well, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's nice that we're getting some mild winter weather. I'm a little bit confused by what I'm feeling outside, but I know we're in the holiday season, so we're going to see snow eventually.
Yeah,
perhaps?
well, next week, a couple inches is one thing, but I'll tell you what, my house, I had 8 inches, and I heard up the pass from my deputy. She's like, Steve, I think I got 13 inches. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe downtown Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
Maybe need a little bit more, but that's good. Are you a skier, or you do any of the winter sports stuff?
You know, I used to be a skier all the time, got the season pass, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's just the crowds have become too big.
Yeah.
And I found myself spending more time in the lift line than I did actually skiing down the hill.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm more of a snowman architect is what I do during the winter months. So that's about my connection to the snow. Before we get into the main conversation here, I did want to start by letting people know that if they're interested in more stories about people doing good in and around El Paso County, or hearing from county leadership about local government priorities and how they operate, they can find additional episodes of this podcast on their podcast platform of choice. You know that. I share it all the time,
Yep.
But it's always good to say you can find this podcast just about anywhere you listen to your podcast. But to get started today, we just had an election about a month ago.
We did.
When that took place. What were some of your main takeaways from this year's process? What did that look like for you guys?
You know, Scott, it was a very successful election, and I will share with you is some of the judges and also some of my staff on election day were sitting there, questioning, are we actually having an election? And that's how smooth it was going. So I take that as a huge compliment. One of the things is, as always, is we did get hammered, on election day with over 60,000 ballots being cast on that day alone. So we saw, really over 40% of all ballots cast being cast on election day. I get it. But at the same time, as much as I get out there, try to tell everybody to vote early, and, it allows us to sit there and reach out if there's anything, any issues with your ballot, or if you fail to sign your ballot envelope, a number of different things. But folks, just election day is election day, and that's when they cast their ballots. So we were pretty busy on election day.
Yeah. Did you open up additional, is it VSPCs?
Yeah,
is that the right acronym?
I
want to make sure. Acronyms are tough in government, so I want to make sure. Voting Service Polling Centers?
My gosh. I feel like we're having a game of Wheel of Fortune, and you just won.
If you want to open up the envelope now and let me know what my prize is, that'd be great.
Yeah, you just got a free trip to Pueblo West.
Hey, I'll take anything I can get at this point. That sounds great.
But no, in fact, Scott, it was... and ask that question again, because just as we were joking.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So I feel like every year you're doing your best to make it even more just easier for people to be able to vote by opening up additional VSPCs and things like that around the county. Is that something you guys did this year as well?
Yeah, in fact, this coordinated election, Scott, we had 12 VSPCs, throughout the county. We had 41 secure ballot drop boxes. Going into 2025, we're going to be adding 3 additional ballot drop boxes. And a lot of folks will sit there and say, what determines that? And it's actually Colorado law, because what they look at is the number of registered voters, and the Secretary of State's office does a calculation where they base the number of ballot boxes off the number of registered voters. And here in El Paso County, we know we're the most, populous county, which then in turn, we have the most voters in the state as well. And we are sitting here right now, as far as active voters, right about 525,000. With inactive, we are just shy of 600,000.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very good. So one of the, I guess, potentially unique things about this past election is we had a runoff.
We did.
The District 11 school board positions. What does that operation look like for your team? Like, is it, does it feel very similar to just running another election, or at least your part of the process, or what does that look like from your team standpoint?
No, and Scott, that is a really good question. In fact, we had our finger on the pulse when we started pushing out election night results and the several days leading up to where the election was done. So there were several races that we were looking at. One was in School District 49. That was pretty close. The other one was in School District 11. But as we sat there and certified the election, is School District 49 did not fall within that statutory 0.5%. It was School District 11. And so a recount is no different here in El Paso County than an actual election. So in some counties, they will go pull the ballots from the voters within that school district and recount those ballots. I don't want to do that, especially when you sit there and you have 189,000 ballots that we have to go through. I don't want to be that clerk in front of my canvas board, in front of my bipartisan judges, and also in front of the watchers going, hey, we missed a ballot or two. So we recount the whole entire county. Now, what that says here is it also gives quality assurance. After our logic and accuracy test is going into the risk limiting audit, all those different audits we do. But having a full recount is another measure just showing that our election results were absolutely 100% correct.
So it sounds like despite the fact that, you don't necessarily look at all these other measures or voted positions that went through election, you still get those results back because you do go through that full process.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, because we recount the entire ballot. But yes, you're absolutely right that we are focused on that particular race as well, where our bipartisan judges, if we need to go to adjudication to find out what the intent of the voter was, is we look at that particular race. But yeah, we recount every single ballot when we go into a recount here in El Paso County.
So from a statutory requirement perspective, what does that look like in terms of timing to do recounts? Like, does it have to be done like within the next couple of days? I mean, I'm sure that despite however smooth the process might go, your election staff is probably pretty worn down by the time November or the Friday after Election Day rolls around. So what does that timing process look like for a recount?
So, Scott, we wrapped up the November 4th election. I mean, when you sit there and you take a look at Election Day was November 4th, is that doesn't mean the election's done, because we have 8 days after that to allow our UACAVA, which is our overseas military members, to allow their ballots to come in, and also allow folks to come in 8 days after Election Day to cure their ballot. And that could be because they did not sign their ballot envelope or their signature did not match what we have on file. So it allows them to come on in and do that. So you're looking at, 8 days after Election Day. And then we go into our risk limiting audit directly after that, where we bring in our bipartisan judges and we actually do a hand count where we pull a number of ballots and, a certain percentage in different races. And we match up the signatures, we match up the ballots, we match up the CVR records, and we hand count those ballots as well. So that takes some time. So we really were done with the election and getting ready to go into canvass the week prior to Thanksgiving. So as you can imagine, you're absolutely right. The staff was tired. I made the executive decision is, guys, you know what? We're going to go ahead and take the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off for Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. We're going to start the recount on Monday. Let's bring the judges back in. But statutorily, we had to have the recount done by Friday, December 5th, and we wrapped up 36 hours ahead of that.
Nice. Okay. Very good. You mentioned something called a curing process for the ballot, something that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with what that looks like. When do you, go to that process, and what does that look like for the person who cast the ballot? Yeah.
So, one of the things just to make, individuals feel exceptionally well in regards to how their elections are run here in El Paso County is we have a Republican and we also have a Democrat team. And we have multiple teams that are bipartisan teams that looks at every single signature on the ballot envelope. So each signature gets a pair of human eyes. If that signature cannot be matched up with what we have on file, then it goes into a stage 2 where it goes to another level. And if that signature still cannot be measured up or verified, it goes into a cure status. And so that's where we reach out to the voter saying, hey, we cannot match your signature. You need to come into the office. You need to show us who you are, give us ID and all that stuff to be able to count that ballot. If they don't come in and cure the ballot, then it is sent over to the district attorney to be investigated and probably prosecuted for voter fraud.
Okay. Got it. Well, I think this office, at least as long as I've been in this role, has done a good job of educating people on the process of elections and being upfront and talking about, this is what the process looks like. This is why we do the things that we do. And, even before you were in this role, I was seeing a lot of the same things previously. It's still I think it's still possible for people to maybe not fully understand what that process looks like, or have some misconceptions about that election process, and perhaps your role in it, or the county's role in that. So for you, what are some of those myths or misconceptions that exist that you think would be good to kind of clear up?
There are a lot of myths and facts when it comes to elections, and I am extremely happy to sit down with everybody and anybody who has, concerns regarding elections. One of the myths is you hear folks out there going, I want to go to one-day voting on paper ballots. And, one of the things is here in El Paso County, the state of Colorado, of course, we just don't have one-day voting. We have, a period of time where folks can cast a ballot, but everybody gets a paper ballot. And that is what is kept on record and things like that. The other thing is, another myth is folks are talking about, cybersecurity and external hackers being able to hack into the voting equipment. And of course, that has been a topic of conversation throughout the community, throughout the state, and also throughout the country for a number of years. And I've been out there, sharing with folks is when I became clerk and recorder is there was a time this equipment, the tabulation equipment, could be connected to the internet. So we got rid of all that. And so really how things are is the tabulators, they don't have any network interface cards, Wi-Fi cards, wireless cards. They cannot be connected to any external network whatsoever. In addition to that is the processing unit with those machines are in locked cabinets. And in addition is you have ports on there where you cannot even insert a thumb drive, a pigtail or anything like that. So, they have port locks on there. So it is a very secure place under 24/7 security, 24/7, motion sensors, locks, cipher locks, security cameras. The sheriff's security department is here monitoring these halls all the time. So it is very, very locked down. But I just want to tell the voters here is our system absolutely cannot connect to any kind of external network.
And so for you, if you are putting yourself in the shoes of a resident out there,
yeah.
What do you want that takeaway to be, I guess?
I think the takeaway is, we have to sit there and basically look at a lot of folks are sitting there talking about, hey, well, this is going on in Georgia, or this is going on in Pennsylvania. This is going on in different states. But, the thing is, I'm the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, and I've listened to the voters here in the county and made some numerous changes, which have either been first in the state or first in the nation. And we've been hyper-focused on transparency. But one thing is we have to realize each state has their own constitution. And each state basically votes differently than others. So that argument always comes in is we always forget about our Constitution and states' rights. I understand the argument where folks want voting to be the same, across the board nationally. But then again, it goes back to what states' rights and federal rights and things like that to have those discussions. And what we do here in El Paso County is very different than what happens in Georgia, what happens in Pennsylvania or California. But I get those conversations all the time and just try to sit there and just say, guys, here in El Paso County, this is how we do it. But California and those guys do it differently based on their constitution and their state.
Mm-hmm. So maybe not having to go into specifics about, who's doing what in what state or, anything like that,
yeah.
to not call anything out. But what are some of those differences that you have seen for yourself or that you have implemented here in the county that is different, and maybe give a little bit of context behind why the why behind that difference?
Scott, a lot of folks sat there and talked to me about a video that was done back in 2021, 2022 called 2,000 Mules.
Okay.
And 2,000 Mules was basically hyper-focused on ballot harvesting, where it was a video that was showing individuals that were stockpiling ballot boxes with, hundreds, if not several hundreds of ballots at each and every time. And here in the state of Colorado, the law is I can only submit 10 ballots throughout an entire election. Scott, you can only do that. And really the reason for the law is if you are, casting the ballots for your parents, your relatives, or things like that. But the max you could do is 10. So when I became clerk and recorder, I realized in talking to the staff is many citizens were doing core requests and they wanted to get footage, that security footage of all the ballot boxes at the time. Well, that was costing thousands of dollars, not only in staff time, county attorney time, but the terabyte, not megabyte, but the terabyte hard drives that we were buying to put all of this video footage on. So I was like, well, let's give the voters the tools. So we changed up the entire security camera system here in El Paso County to one that our cameras now are either solar or, electric operated. So beforehand, they had to have electrical power. And that dictated where we could put a ballot box. Now we no longer have to worry about that. The other thing is we live stream all 41 ballot boxes during an active election. So every citizen in El Paso County can watch every single ballot box live. In addition to that is they also get warnings. So where they sit there and if they want to go back and sit there and see a specific warning on these, cameras, they can be able to do that. But since we launched that system, we have received 0 core requests.
It's a pretty good number.
Yeah. And it saved taxpayers thousands of dollars. But to me, Scott, is transparent, and then you give the voters the tools to go out there and be the judge for themselves. And if they have concerns, they call us up and we, go over that security footage together. But it's starting to basically have a domino effect here throughout the state of Colorado because we were the first in the state to do it. Now other county clerks are going, this is not a bad idea. And they have piggybacked off our contract with our vendor and are starting to do the same thing in the state of Colorado.
Yeah, and you brought up a word there that I think is obviously really important when it comes to government, and that's transparency.
Yep.
Why to you is giving people the opportunity to come and sit down with you? It's sitting down just like this. We're right across the table from each other. You do this. This is something that you feel very strongly about. I've heard you talk about it a number of times before. But for those who may not have heard or not understand, why is taking that time to sit down with people who do have these concerns? Why is that such a valuable thing for you, and why is it an important tool, I guess, in the toolbox for not just you, but for the county as a whole?
Yeah, Scott, here's what I don't like is, especially when it comes to elections, is it's okay to ask the questions. It's okay to disagree with your clerk. It's okay to ask the hard questions. We all have a difference of opinion, but what I don't like is being told, hey, no, don't look here. You know what? I'm tired of hearing the question. I'm not tired of having this conversation. What that does to people, what that does to our citizens is like, hey, what are they hiding? If they're not willing to sit down, if they're not willing to have these conversations, and some of these conversations that you and I are having, and Scott, I've had with hundreds, if not thousands of voters, are the ones that came up with the ideas that have changed El Paso County's election system.
I hope that people, hear that and take that for what it's worth, which is your voice does matter.
It does.
Right. And it's not something that you just, you write a couple notes down when they're in here and then you file it away in a box and, it stays there for for however long, perhaps until the next clerk and recorder comes in. Right.
Yeah.
But no, that something is actually done about those conversations. And, we can't always do something about everything. Right. We have our own statutes of limitations. We have budgetary restrictions. We have all these things as government organizations. But like you said, you can take the time to sit down and listen. And I think that that's a really important thing to point out.
In the way I look at this, though, Scott, is I am only renting this seat.
Right.
The voters allowed me to rent it for 4 years, possibly 8 years. And I've always been a strong proponent is if I have issues with elections or if I have issues with another governmental office, is I truly believe I want to be treated the same way as I treated those, when I served in the capacity.
Mm-hmm. So wanted to move on to a couple of other things because as it turns out, the clerk and recorder's office, it's not just about elections. Imagine that. Feels that way around this time of year, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you do a lot more than that. Your office is also connected to things like marriage licenses, motor vehicles, clerkships, and things like that.
Yeah.
So how do you view your role with these different responsibilities, and how do residents benefit from all these different services that this office provides?
Well, I look at, each, such as recording, motor vehicle, driver's license, and clerk to the board, no differently than I do elections. It's all about transparency And it's also but not only protecting the vote, but also protecting property rights, protecting, their motor vehicle, protecting the information in their recording from, property fraud. So just to share with you just real quick is here in El Paso County, Scott, a lot of people don't know unless they go out there and they read our summary report for the year. But this year, our motor vehicle department is going to be pulling in over $250 million in revenue. And, some of the things that I share with the community, that's a lot of money. And the rightful question that voters, citizens should have is, where's that money go? Mm-hmm. Over 96% of it goes up to the Department of Revenue. The county only keeps about 3.9% of that revenue. So, you start asking the questions going, okay, how do our roads look? How are things looking when we're sitting there, pushing the biggest piggy bank of money up to the state? The other thing in recording is, downstairs we deal all with property deeds, warranty deeds, quit claim deeds. And just a month ago is we just launched a new property fraud program where, property owners, doesn't matter if you're a commercial property owner, vacant landowner, residential property owner, you can sign up for this and go in. If anything is filed, a lien, a quit claim deed, any kind of warranty deed, beneficiary deed, for example, if anything is filed under your name, you will get an automatic email letting you know something has been initiated. That is basically a very instantaneous notification to the property owner. And if they did not initiate that, then they can contact our office where we reach out to the investigating authority, such as the district attorney, to investigate it as property fraud. Mm-hmm. In addition to that is possibly prosecute as well. But having it instantaneous being sent out to our property owners eliminates thousands of dollars that they may have to spend in, a real estate attorney into clear title. So we launched that a month ago. It is going absolutely well. It's going gangbusters. Thousands of people are signing up for it. So your listeners, Scott, do not sign up for property lock that you see during, in commercials after watching an episode of Bonanza in the afternoon or anything like that.
They still show Bonanza.
Yeah, exactly. A Little House on the Prairie or something. But you know what? We're doing it here free. And I always shared with my neighbors and family members is, guys, don't sign up for this stuff because guess where they get the data from?
Right.
Those businesses buy it from your clerk and recorder.
Yeah.
And so now we do it for free. And it's something that I feel is way overdue here in El Paso County. And now it's a free benefit to all of our property owners here in El Paso County.
And how can people sign up for that if that's something they wanted to do? Absolutely.
So you can go to the website, epcrecords.com, and you'll see a big banner right there. It says property fraud. You can go in. What you're going to do is put in your email, then you'll get a verification code. To that email, you type in the verification code. And then what you could do is you put in your name. So for example, on mine, I would put Schleiker Stephen M or Schleiker Steve M or Schleiker Jr. So anything that you've ever had ownership under your name, you can track up to 10 different name variations. And if anything is filed under those variations, you're going to get an instantaneous email once something is filed on your property.
Awesome. Oh, that's pretty cool. So it probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. You have a pretty sizable team that assists residents every day. I mean, again, you have very resident-facing duties to perform here in the clerk and recorder's office. And, a lot of the tasks that we just talked about fall under that. But so talk a little bit about the makeup of these teams and what your view is on how they should be interacting with residents here in the community.
Yeah. So Scott, as I just mentioned, I got 4 statutory duties, which is recording, elections, motor vehicle, and also clerk to the board. And I truly believe we are the face of El Paso County. Each one of our motor vehicle branches will sit there and assist over 500 customers each and every day. So we have a lot of folks that come in. That doesn't include recording when we do marriage licenses or folks are filing a death certificate or, a quit claim deed. Also in elections when people want to become registered or when they come in to vote. So right now I have 175 employees, 135 of which are full-time and 35 our part-time employees. And these are a lot of retirees that have come back to join us to be in a part-time status and do an amazing job. 95 of those employees are motor vehicle. And, of course, they work in our 4 different motor vehicle branches in Fort Carson, which, if you did not know, we're the only county in the entire nation that has a motor vehicle branch on a federal establishment to assist our active duty military members. We have one on Powers, Union Town Center, and here at the Citizen Service Center on Guard of the Gods. And they do an amazing job. The other thing is I ask your listeners to please say thank you to these guys, because we're also the only clerk and recorder's office where our motor vehicle and driver's license services and also marriage license services are open on Saturdays. I do not believe where folks have to lose their hourly wage to do these services. So we're open on Saturdays where they can come on in. We're open from 8 to 1 at the Union Town Center. And believe it or not, my staff do not complain. They are very customer focused. They're extremely bright, because you have to think, these are folks that have to comply with ever-changing statutes when it comes to motor vehicles, titling, commercial vehicles, when you're sitting there looking at a fleet, dealing with all the dealers that we have here that bring in hundreds of titles from, vehicles being sold, recording the same way. Is they have to understand, is this a spurious document or not? Is this actually legit? Mm-hmm. And, and understand, or basically share with somebody, hey, we can't record this, or it may not count if you don't get it notarized.
Right.
So they look at this stuff, but it's ever-changing statutes and training that these guys go through. The other thing that, sadly, that we've been doing over the last year is intensive training on vehicle fraud. Is we have seen individuals come in and try to clean titles or falsify VIN verifications or falsify insurance paperwork. And we are up on it. And I just want to share with you is we put notes in the state's drive system. So a fraudster cannot go from El Paso County and drive down to Pueblo and try the same thing. We put the notes in the system so the entire state knows about this. Mm-hmm. And then we turn them over to the Motor Vehicle Investigation Unit.
Yeah. One of the things that in the number of times that we've talked in the past, we bring up clerk to the board. I don't feel like we've actually talked a whole lot about that role and what that looks like. So can you talk a little bit about that?
That is a really important role. In fact, there's 2 people in there. And what clerk to the board is they are in charge of the resolutions, the notes, the agendas for the Board of County Commissioners. They do a lot. They also do all of the marijuana licensing. They also do County Board of Equalization, which is the second level of property appeal. So if you do not agree what the county assessor basically has determined on your appeal at the initial level, the second level here is in the clerk and recorder's office. So what that means is the property owner is now the plaintiff, and the assessor in that appraiser is the defendant. And all that's done through our clerk to the board. They are extremely busy.
Yeah, I was going to say, and especially with, living here locally, property taxes been going kind of fluctuating quite a bit recently. And so I know there was an influx of those appeals for the property taxes that happened over the course of the past year or two.
Right.
And so, I would imagine that, they kept themselves pretty busy with that side of things as well. Very good. So it's kind of amazing how quickly the time has gone here. We've been able to cover a lot of ground. I'm just wondering if there's anything else that you think would be important for our listeners to know about that maybe we haven't been able to cover yet.
No, there's a lot of things out there where folks just don't know all what their clerk and recorder does. And I invite you to go out to our social media pages. Our communication specialist is amazing. We have done how-to videos or even describe the things that we do. Or even call me at 520-7306. And if you have any questions regarding elections, motor vehicles, driver's license recording, clerk to the board, anything that we do here, I'm more than welcome to sit down with you. If there's a lot of elections questions, again, just give me a call and we'll go over them. And, a lot of times, like I shared, Scott, is a lot of those conversations generated amazing ideas and projects that have been done here in El Paso County.
So don't keep it to yourself.
Don't keep it to yourself. Share.
Share it with the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate you taking the time today and obviously for all the work that you and your office does here in El Paso County. So thank you for making the time.
Thanks, buddy.
If you are interested in listening to additional episodes of Beyond the Dais, be sure to look for us on Podbean or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.